Hi, I'm Cameron.
And I'm Hayden.
And this is...
Until the End of Crime.
And that's it. Crime has ended. 2026,
that's it.
Officially. We're done. It's gone.
We've gotten... And there's no more crime.
Hayden, you've gone too far.
Cut. Clip. Out.
Oh no. Shout out to any math teachers who are listening.
Yeah, if my niece's math teacher is listening to this episode, hey you, we're happy to have you listening.
She would have probably blown her mind if she was like, and I used to live with Cameron. That's very niche for, if you know, you know. That's for like the 3 people who are going to know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
You want my question?
Yep.
Ready to go.
Sorry, well, I was just thinking, what do I say if I don't want a question? What do I say if I don't want to think? Do I say, no, bitch, move on?
I guess you dropped something right by your mic.
I did.
Do we want to pretend like that's us addressing the fact that we've had a couple of rough months where our release schedule hasn't been where it usually is, and that we do intend to get back to our every other week, but thanks for sticking with us.
Yeah, I think you just did it.
But I wanted you to do it.
Okay.
No, it's fine. I'll just leave that in. I don't care.
Well, and I'll say this. We, believe it or not, are busy people. And I think our listeners know that. And for me right now, if I'm being totally honest, my number one goal to get my LCSW so I can get my full license. And then I can move to any state I want to and get reciprocity. And I mean, I still, there are other loopholes you have to engage with in that forum, but it's a big deal. I get my LCSW finished. Andrew and I are free to move to a different state. We can move to Canada and I can apply for similar licensure. We could move to some other places. The NASW is, go ahead.
I was going to say, if you're not sure, much like myself, which state to move to, you just move out of all of them. You just leave the country.
You know what? It would be super cool to live in the UK, I feel.
Is it?
But I fear that my credentials wouldn't be valid to provide therapy in the UK. And
right, I'm not saying the UK. You mentioned Canada.
No, yeah, absolutely.
And then a moose walked past you, and there was maple syrup everywhere.
What? I don't even know what I was going to say. But listen, we've been busy. We're doing our best to get episodes to you in a timely manner.
And
Cameron
if I'm not
does
mistaken,
all of the editing.
Yeah, she does. If I'm not mistaken,
yeah, that she does.
Hayden mentioned in our last episode that he's been having a difficult few weeks, and I think that has not completely eradicated itself.
No.
Which has, and we do this for fun. And you listen because you have mental health problems, probably.
Yes. Another thing, take care of yourself. I have been working really hard on taking care of myself and my mental health and moving through life in a way that allows me to feel good. And sometimes that means that I don't spend what little free time I have coming and recording a podcast. And so sometimes that time has to be dedicated to self-care. And so we're still coming to you. We're still bringing you episodes. The timetable is just shaky right now. And so thanks for sticking with us.
Back to your regularly scheduled programming. Hayden.
I want to stop for just a second, right? Mm-hmm. I think I don't want you to just believe in self-care for us, but I'm also talking about our listeners, right? I know that we have people that listen from different backgrounds, different work backgrounds, teachers, therapists, health workers, people who are on the front lines and having to connect with other humans in a time that's really tough and complicated. And a lot of values have been obfuscated. And I just want to make it clear that you also should take time to take care of yourself. right? This is not therapeutic advice. I'm not licensed to do that in this forum, across states, across countries, but take care of yourself.
I thought that's what you just said before. Did you not already say that?
I was talking about taking care of myself.
Right, but you said to take care of yourself as well.
Oh, well, I wanted to reiterate that. That's how badly I need to take care of myself. I'm repeating myself unknowingly.
Also, listen to yourself when you speak.
Practice self-compassion. And just remember to breathe, meditate, not to give free shout outs to anybody. I use the Insight Timer app. There are so many free meditations. It's so nice. Try a guided visualization. Start there. See how that feels. Allow yourself to monitor your breathing and become aware of your body.
I do that on my Finch app.
Oh, they have built-in like meditative stuff there?
Mm-hmm. Breathing for whatever, if you want to be more alert, if you want to be calm, if you want to be focused. They've got all sorts of breathing things, and it guides you through the breathing. And
I'll tell you this, my favorite DBT skill, dialectical behavioral therapy, that's like very quick, is a meditation called Leaves on a Stream. And it's where we imagine our anxieties as leaves that float away on a stream. And you can find guided visualizations or guided meditations for that. If you're dealing with stress or anxiety, or you just feel overwhelmed, YouTube Leaves on a Stream, find the audio somewhere, allow yourself to do it. Man, you're going to notice a tremendous difference as soon as you complete that activity. So
you can also, if you want something more tangible, something that I've at least seen done with students and maybe done with students myself, is give everybody a small slip of paper or a Post-it note and tell them to write down the thing that is worrying them the most. And then you look at it, you see it, and then you crumple it up and throw it away. And that can be very therapeutic as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like a physical
There's
release.
a lot of ways to find catharsis.
Yeah. I don't, but I respect the game, so.
I respect that other people value their mental health.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So, also read. Go out and read. Read some fiction books. Read something that's going to make you happy. I have been engaging in some reading escapism, and I've been reading some really cute romance novels. Go and read something. Disconnect from social media and do something charmingly analog. Read a book.
I read a book the other day.
Ting, 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 ting.
I was on an 11-hour flight, so. I
have read 7 books so far this year. Not to toot my own horn, but I'm reading.
I read one the other day on a plane. Hayden, what do you know about criminal profiling?
What do I know about criminal profiling? Well, one of my favorite shows, Criminal Minds. Oh, God. It is such a good show. But what do I know about Oh, you know what else is a good show? Mindhunter, also about profiling. I think what I know about profiling is that the intent is to use psychological and criminological knowledge to create profiles of the people who commit certain crimes so that they are either A, easier to find, B, easier to catch, or C, we can start building up this kind of network of incidents where we can see patterns of behaviors. I think that it started to really take shape in the 1960s and 70s, and that's when it started to be incorporated into FBI work in the 70s. That could be wrong. I could have that historical time frame mixed up a little bit, but I think that's accurate.
I think if you're talking in the context of Mindhunter, that is when the behavioral analysis unit was formed within the FBI, yeah.
That's what I mean, yes. I don't know if I know more than that. Like, I can't give you specific cases where it was used to necessarily catch a criminal, but I'm sure it's been incredibly helpful.
I feel like we've had a conversation. Do what?
Have you watched Criminal Minds?
No. But I think we've had that conversation before where it seems like it would be the thing that I would for sure like. But I've never
That's
really...
true.
I think I've seen maybe half of an episode once.
You might find it too artificial.
I mean, I like Scrubs.
I used to think Scandal was made up, but I don't anymore, so...
No. It was based on a real lady. So do you think that the Behavioral Analysis Unit, you think that the inception of criminal profiling and the Behavioral Analysis Unit were like in conjunction with one another?
The way you have framed that question makes me think the answer to it is no, but my understanding of profiling kind of begins and ends with the Behavioral Analysis Unit.
And you know what? I think John Douglas would appreciate that.
Oh, good. Not even sure who John Douglas is.
Well, he's the author of Mindhunter, which was turned into a show on Netflix.
Yeah.
The Deliana Hang case that I covered, it was...
Oh, okay. I remember you talking... Okay, yes.
Yeah, John Douglas. I think he's the person who the main character is kind of fashioned after in Mindhunter. Anyway, it was November 16th, 1940, at the Consolidated Edison power plant, when a wooden toolbox placed on a windowsill was discovered to be holding a pipe bomb wrapped in a note that read, "Con Edison Crooks, this is for you," signed with the initials FP. The bomb did not detonate, and maybe that was intentional, but the later bombs did, because this was the first bomb of what would ultimately be at least 33 bombs, and a reign of terror that loomed over New York City for 16 years.
16 years.
16 years.
Wow. It's a lot of years to reign terror.
Yes. There's been some speculation about that first pipe bomb. And the fact that it did not detonate, was that intentional? Would the note have survived the explosion? Would investigators have known the signature of the person behind the first of nearly 36 bombs? Because why would you wrap it in a note that you've written on if it was going to just kaboom?
Right. You wouldn't.
You would think. Obviously, at the time, no one knew that this one little crude bomb made in a small piece of brass pipe filled with gunpowder that did not explode would be more than exactly that. Until September. I don't even know what that means, but I wrote it, so I'm going to go with it.
Okay.
Until September of the following year, when a bomb with a... We will never get through this. It's just not going to happen.
We can. We will. We must.
We must. Okay, hold on.
The horrors persist, but so do I.
Until September of the following year, when a bomb with a matching ignition mechanism made of sugar and flashlight batteries was found 5 blocks from the Consolidated Edison headquarters. It had no note, only a matching signature in the form of the composition of the ignition. And it is believed that this one was intended to be set off, but may have been dropped in a hurry without being lit, potentially because the bomber was spooked by someone they saw.
Okay.
I cannot believe that I put the word ignition in here, as if I wasn't going to just then break out in R. Kelly.
Remix to ignition. We can
2 years
about to have me
ago,
some fun.
He was one of the worst people you could mention. And now I don't think he's quite as high on that list. He's still on the list.
Yeah.
But boy, people have been racing for the top spot.
I can't believe we decided to do a full listen through of Do What You Want.
Decided parade. Decided. No decision. It just happened.
Arts and pop culture and me. I live for the applause, applause, applause.
Okay, 3 months later, after the United States had officially entered the Second World War, because back then fascism was anti-American, the police received a letter written in the same blocky letters from FP, which read, "I will make no more bomb units for the duration of the war. My patriotic feelings have made me decide this. Later, I will bring the Con Edison to justice. They will pay for their dastardly deeds. FP." Which...
FP's not fucking playing.
I think it's so important to let anybody who's listening know that I haven't edited this yet, but so much has been edited out. Including but not limited to a full breakdown where we jammed to redacted. Jammed.
I literally sang Remix to Ignition out loud, and then we did Do What You Want.
Okay. Yes, not fucking playing. Got it. It made some suspicious that FP had military training. And FP kept their word, and for the following decade, from 1941 to 1951, they did not plant any bombs. FP did stay in communication with the police, though, sending letters and postcards. Well, it wasn't just the police they were communicating with. Letters and postcards were also sent to newspapers, Consolidated Edison, and even private citizens. What they were able to guess based on handwriting analysis is that the way the Y and the G were written indicated that the author may have had a European education. In 1951...
Was I supposed to have a question there?
No, but you had one on your face.
Oh, I just was thinking, what the fuck is a European Y and G? How is that different than an American Y and G? But then I decided, I don't know if I actually really care.
If you would like to ask the question, I don't know the answer, so...
Oh, okay, good. So no, I won't ask it.
Okay. In 1951, FP decided they'd given the NYPD enough of a break and started bombing places again. This time it was more random and more destructive. Bombs were placed in locations that were known to be densely populated. A call would be made that would warn people about the building a bomb had been placed in, but was never more specific than that, not indicating to people which area of the building to evacuate or avoid. Newspapers were warned that more bombs were on their way. Bombs, bombs, bombs. Sometimes the bombs included notes, other times they didn't, but none of the notes ever gave any indication as to why this was happening. Public buildings that were bombed once were often bombed again, which sounds like I was going to say sounds like a fun Tuesday night. I don't even know where fat came from. A fun Tuesday night.
This is the least with it we've ever been.
I'm sure that's not true because we've said this before.
This feels really untethered. When have we ever done a 3-minute singing and dancing break in the middle of recording?
Hardly ever.
On a good day, if I had suggested as such, I don't think you would have gone along with it. You would have been like, no, Hayden, I'm going to have to edit it.
You said that it was nowhere to be found, that it had been scrubbed from the interweb, and I had to see if it was still in my Apple Music library. And it was. So how could I rob you of listening to it?
Honestly, I'm glad you didn't.
I was honestly putting it on for like 10 or 15 seconds just to confirm to you that it was the right one, and then why would we turn it off?
It's so good. It's so good. It's so good. It's stupid good. I don't know how that song wasn't number one. Honestly, our pop was done so dirty. It's such a good record.
It's got some bangers. It's also got some clangers. I'm not a fan of Jewels and Drugs, if I'm honest with you.
That's not my favorite either. Believe it or not.
Also, some of them are so good. Love Donatella. Love. I don't even remember when I wrote this first portion of this, but I mean, bombs, bombs, bombs. What?
Oh, okay.
I read that already.
Bombs,
that was
bombs,
a sentence.
bombs.
Yeah. Newspapers were warned that more bombs were on their way. Bombs, bombs, bombs.
Good. Healthy.
Can you believe that anybody says that this is their favorite podcast?
No. Nope.
It's
I sure
gotta
can't.
be unhealthy. They've got to be tested for something. They would be dropped in storage facilities, phone booths, public restrooms in places including the New York City subway, the RCA building, twice at the New York Public Library, twice at the Port Authority bus terminal, thrice at Radio City Music Hall, and 5 times at both Grand Central Station and Pennsylvania Terminal. Did you know Grand Central Station is not actually called Grand Central Station? It's Grand Central Terminal, and I made the executive decision, much like Beyonce, to call it Grand Central Station.
I can't believe it's not just Grand Central Station.
I know.
Also, really fucking rude to put pipe bombs in public restrooms. I'm already dodging all kinds of bombs in public restrooms. A pipe bomb is crazy. It's,
It really changes it when you say I'm about to go in here and blow this thing up.
Yeah, talk about overkill. Jesus.
Oh, God. Okay.
They didn't even have poopery back then.
It definitely didn't have the portable bidet. I'll tell you that.
The fuck's a portable bidet?
That's what
Carrying
I've been
a water
using for the
flosser
last
in your
year.
purse?
Basically. That's what I've been using.
Okay.
After I had the 2 on my toilets in San Antonio and then taking them off, they're just like disgusting. So like up under there where the water comes out, it gets all really gross. So it's not worth having to do like plumbing on my own home just to create a brand new ecosystem in the toilet.
Okay.
All right. Also, movie theaters were convenient for them because they would just cut a slit in a seat and slide the bomb in there and then, bada bing, bada boom.
Oh my God. You are so cavalier about these bombs today.
I didn't do that one on purpose, but when I typed boom...
bombastic about these booms.
That one I didn't do on purpose. I was saying bada bing, bada boom, and then I was like, oh, boom, that's not. So then I put an ellipsis in.
I'm not crazy, I'm just a little unwell.
Don't go down the Matchbox 20 avenue with me. I'll go put my Matchbox 20 as my friend shirt on and we'll be having another little mini concert. The first bomb on the revival tour was at Grand Central Station on March 29th, 1951. There were no injuries. The following month, at the New York Public Library, a bomb went off in a phone booth. There were no injuries. 4 months later, another phone booth bomb went off. This one outside of Grand Central Station. There were no injuries. The police, of course, chalked this up to pranksters. You know how boys will be bombing public places at random for funsies. Then another bomb exploded in the phone booth at Consolidated Edison headquarters. There were no injuries. Another was
how non-lethal these bombs are.
Hold that thought. Another was mailed to the Consolidated Edison's White Plains, New York location, which did not detonate. October 22nd, another note came through to the New York Herald Tribune. It read, "Bombs will continue until the Consolidated Edison Company is brought to justice for their dastardly acts against me. I have exhausted all other means. I intend with bombs to cause others to cry out for justice for me." Within the letter, the police were alerted to the presence of a bomb at the Paramount Theater in Times Square, which was disabled, and a phone booth at Pennsylvania Station, where they found nothing. Another 5 weeks passed before a bomb went off at the 14th Street subway station. It had been planted in a coin locker. There were no injuries. As 1951 was coming to a close, the New York Herald Tribune received another correspondence that read, "Have you noticed the bomb in your city? If you are worried, I am sorry. And also, if anyone is injured. But it cannot be helped, for justice will be served. I am not well, and for this I will make the Con Edison sorry. Yes, they will regret their dastardly deeds. I will bring them before the bar of justice. Public opinion will condemn them. For beware, I will place more units under theater seats in the near future. F.P." On March 19th, 1952, a bomb went off in a phone booth at the Port Authority bus terminal. There were no injuries. In both June and December, seats at Lexington Avenue Lowe's Theater exploded. There were no injuries in the June explosion, but the December bomb did injure one person. The police realized this was no longer just pranksters, so they asked the papers to stop publishing the letters from FP and to downplay the bombings in order to avoid inflating the public's fear too much.
It feels like they maybe waited a little too long to decide that it wasn't a prank, that
Maybe.
FP didn't stand for fucking pranks. And so I don't understand why they waited so long. I mean, on top of that, I really don't, like, of course, I've heard the term pipe bomb. I know it's created, like, makeshift. I literally, and I don't want to discuss the ins and outs of them now, but I don't even know how a pipe bomb is made. I don't understand its mechanisms. I think not that I would ever use one, but I think it's for the best that I don't know those kinds of things, right? And so I think, how many people had copies of the Anarchist Cookbook? Why was this pipe bomb such common knowledge?
Do you think that there might be a certain type of person who would have such knowledge?
Sure, absolutely. It's just, I'm thinking about, like, man, people of the olden generations, they really had a lot of pluck. They had a lot of stamina, a lot of energy. I don't know a lot of people who would work hard to find something out if it meant going beyond the internet. So
But don't you think that somebody would need to be suited to do this? Like either in the type of work that they did or in the schooling that they had?
Yes, absolutely. Some kind of knowledge, some kind of understanding, some kind of rudimentary connection. I also think that has to be someone who has some kind of anger or some kind of desire to inspire fear.
How do you feel about the police deciding that the public did not need to be told about this as they were continuing?
I don't like when any government entity decides what people can and can't know or what they should or shouldn't know.
Well, people knew that there was a, quote, mad bomber on the loose, despite the police's efforts at this point. Throughout 1953, 3 bombs exploded, and 1 was found undetonated. There were no injuries. In March 1954, a bomb that had been forced behind a sink in a men's restroom at Grand Central Station blew up that injured 3 men. The Port Authority bus terminal phone booth had another bomb that exploded. There were no injuries. Another phone booth at Pennsylvania Station, which had been removed for repairs, was found to have a planted bomb in it. On November 7th, Radio City Music Hall was at capacity, holding a mere 6,200 people to watch Bing Crosby's White Christmas.
Very small number, just 6,200.
You'll never guess what happened.
I'm sure I won't.
A koala had gotten loose from the Central Park Zoo and was terrorizing people.
That can't be true.
Oh, wait.
Oh, wait.
Actually, a bomb went off in the 15th row. 4 people were injured. Only the people nearby heard the explosion because it had been embedded in the seat cushion. And those who were injured went to the music hall's first aid room. And after the film concluded, the area within the theater was roped off and evidence was searched for, which just feels pretty casual.
I feel like maybe we should stop the show and do some work to collect evidence and not let a scene be contaminated. But what do I know? I'm just some bitch.
You clearly know nothing, because the show must go on.
I never have.
You've never worked in showbiz, much like myself.
Never.
I have also never worked in showbiz, and the show must go on.
I've done a lot of work for people that it's entertaining.
Sometimes even on this very podcast.
Sometimes right here on this very podcast. Yeah, that's, I don't know if you're trying to embody it. I'm sure you are, the kind of laissez-faire attitude that seems to permeate part of this story and never taking things too seriously. And even here, where we have an instance of multiple people being injured, it doesn't seem like anyone gives a real flying fuck about what's going on.
Part of my frustrations in researching this case come from the fact that can be truly exemplified in my next sentence. The next bomb that exploded was on an undetermined date in 1955 at Sutter Avenue subway station on the platform. There were no injuries. The number of bombings that I was coming across and I could not find the date of. I was like, there should be a record. There should be a record somewhere of the date, either in which a bomb went off or was located, but I couldn't find it. There was one bombing that when I was looking for more information, I found it on the Library of Congress's website. But other than that, and maybe if I was willing to pay for a New York Times subscription, but they're so obnoxious with it that I refuse on principle. So
good for you.
Could have had more dates. Except for I also was concerned that if I would have paid, I would have gotten in there and then found that the dates were also not available there.
Right.
So it wasn't worth the risk. Because if it's worth the risk, then take the fall. But if it's what you want, then it's worth it all.
Mind blown, Master Yoda.
Also in 1955, a bomb in a phone booth at Macy's detonated. There were no injuries. Pennsylvania subway station was hit twice, once in a coin locker and the other in a phone booth. There were no injuries. And a bomb was located in Radio City Music Hall, unexploded, after a call came in warning about it. While an upholsterer was working on the seats at the Roxy Theater, much to his surprise, a bomb fell out on his workbench. It did not explode. At the Paramount Theater, a bomb exploded. There were no injuries officially, but a man did get hit on the foot by a piece of debris. He disclaimed injury, though. It was at this point that the investigation revealed that the penknives being used to cut the slits into the seats in theaters were also being slipped into the seats, presumably to let the bomber walk away without any evidence on their person in case they were questioned or searched. Another men's bathroom at Grand Central Station had a bomb that went off, but fortunately, this time, there were no injuries. On February 21st, 1956, a man had reported that there was something blocking a toilet. The 74-year-old attendant, Lloyd Hill, attempted to plunge the obstruction, but it exploded, and Lloyd suffered a head injury. Investigators and medical help arrived on the scene. While medical examiner Dr. Bernard Russoff treated Lloyd, the investigators searched through the porcelain fragments and found pieces from a watch and a wool sock. This was significant because it was because it was believed that FP was disguising some of the bombs in socks to carry and drop them without appearing too suspicious. Because, I'm always carrying around socks. In the RCA building in Rockefeller Center, a guard found a 5-inch piece of pipe in a telephone booth. He showed it to another guard, who thought it looked like something he could use on his home project. He was doing some plumbing at home. So he took it with him on the bus back to New Jersey. It exploded early the next morning on his kitchen table. There were no injuries. December 2nd, 1,500 people were in attendance at the Paramount Theater in Brooklyn when a bomb went off. 6 people were injured, with one of them being seriously injured. Despite the police urging the papers to downplay the bombings to this point, this was widely publicized, and on the 3rd, Police Commissioner Stephen P. Kennedy ordered the, quote, greatest manhunt in the history of the police department. That was his quote as he was ordering it, from what I could tell. 3 weeks later, on Christmas Eve, a New York Public Library clerk went into a phone booth and dropped his coin. I guess I want to point out, because it took me a while to put, 2 and 2 together, but a lot of these phone booths were in the buildings in which these people were at when they were using them. So this phone booth was not on the ground floor of the library, but it was up somewhere. I don't know exactly, but to me, when I think of a phone booth, I think of something that's outdoors, but they were not outdoors in the 50s. Right. So he dropped his coin, and after retrieving it, he noticed a maroon-colored sock being held up under the phone by a magnet. He discussed this with other employees, and they made the collective decision to throw it out the window into Bryant Park and notify the police.
Okay. That feels like a choice instead of just sectioning off that area.
We're having the same thoughts, I think, and I haven't actually spent too much time investigating the thoughts, but I'm like, throwing it out of a window just feels really reckless. It feels more reckless than just evacuating.
Yeah, who's it going to land on?
Right. Whatever. Threw it out the window into Bryant Park and notified the police. The bomb squad, more than 60 officers and detectives, showed up. It was dealt with. The following month, the bomber sent a letter to the New York Journal-American that the bomb that had been found at the library and another bomb that had been found at the Paramount Theater in Times Square had both been planted in their respective locations months prior to their discoveries.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. So who could have done this? Any thoughts? Any ideas? Who do you think?
I don't have a lot of thoughts on who could have done it.
Well, you said somebody angry.
A man.
A man. Yeah. I mean, women were making their sandwiches. It was the 50s after all.
I mean, I would say he's at least middle-aged.
Okay. Why was he angry?
I don't know. He has European Ys and Gs.
Yeah.
So maybe he came to the United States as an immigrant of some kind. He didn't do anything during the war, which was World War II.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm not sure why he's angry.
It was assumed by investigators that this was someone who had worked at Consolidated Edison and was disgruntled and holding a grudge against the energy company. He was potentially fired or mistreated. They reviewed employment records. Of course, other tips trickled in throughout the 16 years of bombings. Everyone became suspicious, especially the public. Was their neighbor building bombs in their home? I did see them do that one thing that I found to be suspicious. It's gotta be my neighbor. The bomb investigation unit was created within the NYPD with one goal: to find this bomber. They only worked on tips and information regarding these bombings. Fingerprint experts were called in to no avail. Handwriting experts were called in to no avail. The bomb investigation unit and the NYPD worked on this case to no avail. Traditional methods were not working. So, Police Captain John Cronin had an idea. He reached out to his friend James A. Russell to see if he could pick his brain about this case. Russell was a criminologist, psychologist, and the assistant commissioner to the New York State Commission for Mental Hygiene. He agreed to meet with the head of NYPD's crime laboratory, Howard E. Finney. Russell examined the evidence, the photos taken of the crime scenes, and the letters. As he worked through all of this, he developed something of a picture of who this bomber might be. Today, this would be called a profile of the offender. A lot of this was determined through the work that he had done with the mentally ill patients that he had worked with. The offender was likely someone with metalworking and electrical skills who was fixated on his perceived wrongdoing by Consolidated Edison and likely was suffering from paranoia surrounding this.
Mm-hmm.
The offender was almost certainly male, as empirically that's who makes bombs. Likely, he had an average build and was between 40 and 50 years of age, since paranoia builds slowly.
See, I want to know how he knew average build.
He knew average build because of his work with the mental health patients. So those who exhibited paranoia, he was looking at them, especially in that 40 to 50 age range.
And he said, oh, these people are just all average build.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, oh, is it the way he operates? Is it the way he chooses his different spaces to put these in? Is he putting them somewhere that a fatty couldn't reach, or someone who wasn't as tall could reach? And just because other people fit that demographic that have that disorder. See, that's right. Profiling is fascinating. And when you were just talking about some of those mental health related elements, I was like, oh, yeah, that's genius thinking. You know, kind of like when you're creating lesson plans and you use backwards design. You start with the goal in mind and move backwards. And so I love that there are people, and I assume just like with teaching, when I was doing that, I'll get better with it over time. But sometimes it's hard to do that kind of backwards think, to start with the known or the solution, right, and then try to work backwards to create the equation.
Yeah.
And that's fascinating. I could never imagine average build, I don't think. I think I wouldn't know what to say. And certainly I can see the upset with what is it, Consolidated Electric? Or
Consolidated
what is it called?
Edison. Yeah.
Consolidated Edison. I can see having a frustration point with them as being a motivator for the behavior, but I don't think I could say confidently that is the cause of the behavior. And so it's just fascinating, but I want you to continue. I apologize.
I also think that if you had been given all of the information, like, I don't know that we were given the contents of every letter that was sent, the letters that were sent to the newspaper, to Consolidated Edison, to the random public citizens, to the police. So I wonder if having all of that would change the way that you viewed that.
That would certainly help, wouldn't it?
Yeah. So the construction of the bombs and the letters gave the impression that this man would be tidy and neat, who paid attention to detail. His employment record would have demonstrated that he was a wonderful employee who was consistently on time and behaved appropriately while on the job. Since bombs were favored in Middle Europe, it was thought that he was likely from a Slavic background or culture, which also meant that he was likely Catholic and living in Connecticut. There was a large Slavic community in Connecticut.
A large Slavic Catholic community in Connecticut. It's a lot of syllables.
Which aligned with the postcode from which many of the letters were sent, because it was a halfway point between Connecticut and New York City.
Ah, now that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. He would not necessarily be friendly, but he would be polite and follow social norms in his interactions with those around him.
Except for laying pipe bombs.
Well, there was that one thing.
There's that one thing.
But that's part of a bomber profile from like what I have read in recent times since then. Obviously, he was like kind of the grandfather of criminal profiling, because he was just like, well, I've worked with paranoid patients before, and kind of was like, these are some of the things that I would expect to see in my workings with a paranoid client. But bombers
is also, sorry, I was going to say paranoia can be really difficult to work with, because in instances where you try to help clients test their delusions, you can sometimes end up becoming part of the delusion, part of the problem equation. And
I've seen
gosh, it is, it takes really articulate and thoughtful actions to avoid doing that, but also combating the paranoia. And this professional who you're talking about, what is his name again?
Russell.
Brussel. I want to say Brussels sprout.
It's not Brussels, it's Brussels.
Hearing his approach, the kind of the etymology of his profile is really fascinating. It's giving me a lot to think about.
So in the profile of a modern day bomber, they are people who don't particularly like confrontation, which is why they may be disgruntled, they may be holding on to things. It's almost similar to a poisoner, if I'm not mistaken. It's something that they do, but that they can do with distance between themselves and whoever is being impacted, which aligns with the not necessarily a friendly person, but would be polite and follow social norms, because when you don't follow social norms, people usually will call you out on it.
I'm also hearing like a lot of rumination as part of this behavior, right? Whatever is going on, this perpetrator is hung up on something, and they're allowing it to get to a point of where it just feels egregious, but still wanting to avoid confrontation.
Right. It's interesting that in this profile, because even when I get to the end of it, it was thought early on that this was somebody, when he said that he was going to take a break during the war, that this was somebody with military background. But that is not present in Dr. Brussels' profile. Anyway, so his education would have been considered good, but would not reflect any college studies. And he either immigrated to the U.S. or was living in a community of people who had immigrated, because the phrasing and formality of the letters seemed to Brussels to have been thought out in another language before being translated to English. The next part was a little outlandish to me, because what the hell do I know? I'm not a criminal profiler, but I guess he wasn't either, really.
Do you get the woman on TikTok? I think she does Instagram and TikTok. I think I see her on Instagram, and she watches cooking videos, and she just talks about how nasty they are. And then she goes, but what do I know? I'm just some dumb bitch, or I'm just some bitch.
Mm-mm.
Never fails to crack me up. And that's That's what I've been thinking as we've been going through your case today, where I'm like, well, not what I would have thought or done, but I'm just some bitch, right? Like, I'm just some bitch who doesn't know shit. So what good am I?
You
But
said it
man,
earlier.
and I know exactly why I said it, because I was thinking about, but what do I know, right? Like,
Yeah.
I don't know why so often the decisions of protective forces leave me so confused. But again, I'm just some bitch, so I don't know.
All right.
Sorry,
As I was saying, I'm no criminal profiler, but technically, Brussel wasn't either. He just created what is considered one of the first criminal profiles. According to him, the way that the W's were rounded made him think that the bomber wrote them that way to kind of resemble breasts.
Okay, we're becoming psychoanalytical here.
Which he paired with the slashing and insertion of objects into the theater seats, which led him to believe that sex may trouble the bomber, and he may even exhibit signs of an Oedipus complex. And I could not possibly pass up this opportunity to tell anyone who is listening, in case you're not familiar with what that means. Oedipus is the delightful story of a king and queen who were ready to invite their firstborn child, a son, into the world, and were given a prophecy that this baby would grow up to kill his father and marry his mother. Naturally, they were like, ew, and sent someone off with the baby to kill the baby instead. But the person tasked with this job must not have been a high-ranking politician or millionaire, because they couldn't kill the baby.
Oh, Jesus.
The baby, Oedipus, was taken in by a family who raised him, and one day, on his way into the city, I think to find his parents, he came across a group of men, and, one thing led to another, as it always does. And Oedipus ended up killing one of the men. Whoops, didn't realize it, but that was the king. And so now, Oedipus had to marry Jocasta and assume the role of king. And he did all that, and he and his lovely wife had 4 children. And damn it all to hell, turns out that the king he killed was his father, and then the woman he married and procreated with was his mother, and then he gouged his eyes out, and so on. And that's how Oedipus became the original motherfucker.
The original motherfucker is crazy. Great, now do the Electra complex.
No, because I know Oedipus like the back of my hand, because, gosh, when I started teaching, just before I started teaching, I had this really bad habit of saying motherfucker all the time. And so to break the habit, I substituted it with Oedipus. So that I wouldn't randomly say motherfucker in the middle of a classroom.
Whatever works.
It worked. It did work. Anyway, the bomber probably hated his father or authority figures and adored his mother. Because, the W's looked like titties and he was sticking bombs into the seats of the theater.
Things like that make me glad that I am a therapist and not some kind of criminal psychologist.
He'd likely be a loner with few friends, little to no interest in women, unmarried, and possibly living with an older female relative. See Oedipus complex. And he'd probably be apprehended wearing a buttoned...
Oedipus complex. Sorry. That's not even funny.
This is disgusting.
Okay, sorry. Back to your regularly scheduled programming.
And he'd probably be apprehended wearing a buttoned, double-breasted suit. Double-breasted because of the W's.
It feels a little bit like this man's making some shit up.
Okay, but actually when I read that line, the implication was that it ended up coming to pass, but I don't think so.
At some point, we crossed the line from profile to prophecy. It's...
He said Oedipus, and then he just started prophesizing.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, but I think that you would see that in a modern criminal profile. This is the way that this person is likely kempt. They probably dress like this. They probably keep their hair like this.
This is how they present. This is...
Right.
Yeah. They're largely unkempt. Prefer a 1950s dapper... Whatever, right? Like, they can get incredibly detailed.
Yeah.
God, I'm definitely going to go watch Criminal Minds after we get off this call.
So then, Russell contradicted what the police were thinking of doing with this profile. And he said, publish that ish everywhere. Because the bomber would not be able to resist responding if anybody was wrongfully accused or taking credit for these acts. He would feel the need to set the record straight. And the profile ran alongside the coverage of the bomb found at the New York Public Library, the one that was tossed out the window, in the paper that was put out on December 25th, 1956. And then the tips and false confessions started flooding the police. The pressure was building. On Boxing Day, the newspaper then ran a plea for the bomber to turn himself in so he could receive a fair trial. The bomber wrote back and said, "Nope, not until Con Edison is brought to justice." He also included concerns that not all of the bombs he'd planted throughout the year had been located. And he wrote, "My days on Earth are numbered. Most of my adult life has been spent in bed. My one consolation is that I can strike back, even from my grave, for the dastardly acts against me." This is the second time, I don't know if you caught it the first time, but this is the second time where he's mentioned, like, he's talking about being near death, right? Most of my adult life has been spent in bed. In an earlier note, there was also something about him not being well. So if I were reading these and I were inventing criminal profiling, I would probably have honed in on those a little bit. So the investigators responded via the newspaper asking for more information, which, as I've just pointed out, is a bit obvious to me. But then FP responded, letting them know that he was injured on the job when he worked for Con Edison. This resulted in him being permanently disabled and left to pay his own medical bills because Con Edison blocked his workers' compensation case. Once they had this information, Con Edison clerk Alice Kelly began searching through workers' compensation files.
I want to say this. If that's true, fuck Con Edison. But
they're
also,
still in business.
If that's true, let's not go making bombs.
Well, you're going to have to pick a lane, sir.
I know. It feels like either or is really the only option, but I swear to God, there's more choices.
Well, you just wait, okay? So Alice Kelly searching through workers' compensation files, and then the investigators responded again in the paper asking for even more information about the injury and date it occurred. In his response, he told them that on September 5th, 1931, he had been left on the floor for hours without any medical care. He developed pneumonia and then later tuberculosis as a result of the injury, and that he had sent over 800,000 letters to newspapers about Con Edison's inhumane treatment of him, but no one cared. Couple of things. I think we've got information in our profile added if we are looking at how eager he is to reveal sensitive information that would ultimately lead them directly to him. He is so eager to have his story heard about how Con Edison treated him so poorly that he's saying, this is when it happened, this is what happened. I had contacted newspapers in over 800,000 times. I had written in, I guess, between 1931 and 1940 when the first bomb was planted. But then maybe also still during his little bombing hiatus, for the war.
Weird to think of it as a hiatus.
That's how it was listed on the Wikipedia page, from which I pulled heavily.
I mean, because in my mind, I think of hiatus as reserved for lovely things like television shows and taking a break from work. But, cool.
No word on if he thought that bombing was lovely. On Friday, January 18th, 1957, Kelly found a file that had red lettering on it that indicated that this was a problematic file of sorts, that this wasn't a simple or easy case. There, in the file, it indicated the same phrasing, dastardly deeds, and other key phrases. And so I think that she handed this over. It may not have been the only file that she handed over, but this was turned over to detectives. So that was how they discovered that George Metesky had worked for Consolidated Edison from 1929 to 1931, where he was injured in an accident at the plant. Just a little bit of background on George Metesky. He was born November 2nd, 1903 in Waterbury, Connecticut, which, as somebody who's consumed quite a bit of true crime content over the years, I know that the Waterbury, Connecticut Police Department has had some questionable cases or questionable handlings of cases that have led to victims of domestic violence who have restraining orders in another county but who worked in Waterbury killed because they were like, well, you may have a restraining order there, but you don't have one here. And,
Awesome.
Things like that. His parents were Lithuanian immigrants, and he was the youngest of 3 siblings who joined the U.S. Marines, serving as a specialist electrician at the U.S. consulate in Shanghai. And then he went to work as a mechanic for a subsidiary of Consolidated Edison when a boiler backfire produced a blast of hot gases, which knocked him down, and the fumes filled his lungs, choking him. He was disabled and collected 26 weeks of sick pay before losing said job at Consolidated Edison. And according to claims by Consolidated Edison, which they disputed, he had pneumonia that developed into tuberculosis, as I mentioned, and his workers' compensation claim was denied because he waited too long to file it.
Wrong.
So his case had been labeled troublesome. And on January 21st, just before midnight, which is why I don't think he was in a buttoned, double-breasted suit, a team of NYPD detectives, accompanied by the Waterbury, Connecticut Police Department, arrived with a search warrant at Metesky's home and arrested him. Well, first, they asked for a handwriting sample. And as he was writing, he wrote one of his distinctive G's and then told them he knew they were there because they believed he was the Mad Bomber. They asked him what FP stood for, and he told them it meant fucking playing. No.
Stupid.
He told them it meant fair play. You're never going to guess what they found in his house, where he lived with his 2 older sisters, none of whom were married. You remember the koala?
Koala?
No.
Oh.
The things to make bombs.
Bamboo?
Well,
pipes?
he didn't call them bombs. He called them...
What did he call them?
Units.
Okay. Units that explode. Got it. Bombs.
In his letters, he said bomb units.
Arose by any other name.
But verbally, he would only call them units. And they also found a very large piece that he told them was intended for the New York Coliseum, naturally. I mean, duh.
Okay. So he didn't care.
About what?
That they were there. He was compliant. He wasn't trying to run from anything.
Wasn't trying to run. He wanted his... He had actually, I think, sent a letter saying that he was considering turning himself in because then he would be able to get his story out there so that people could understand how terrible Consolidated Edison was.
I'm not sure what else you're going to tell me, but it's very easy for me to feel a level of empathy for this guy.
Yeah.
Anyway, please continue.
I mean, of course, it's somebody who already is dealing with mental health that is not helped by the fact that he's injured, disabled, ill, very sickly, and almost forced to probably not leave his bed very much.
Right.
Especially before this point. You're gonna see there was no running for him, but he did know the exact date of every unit placement over the 32 locations, and he clearly admitted to it all. 47 charges were brought against him. 47 charges.
Okay.
47 charges. Those sound really good together, don't you think?
Yeah.
But I digress. 47 charges were brought against Metesky, including attempted murder, damaging a building by explosion, maliciously endangering life, and violation of New York State's Sullivan Law by carrying concealed weapons. There were only 7 attempted murder charges because the statute of limitations at the time was 5 years, so it was just for the injured persons from January 1952 on. In the interim, he had been sent to Bellevue Hospital in Manhattan to undergo psychiatric evaluation. Metesky was diagnosed as a paranoid schizophrenic and was found criminally insane. He was committed to the Metesky Hospital for the criminally insane and had to be physically carried in due to the advanced tuberculosis from which he suffered. He was expected to only live for a few weeks. But his condition was treated for 18 months and his health seemingly did a 180. His sisters visited him regularly, and occasionally Brussels also visited him. What?
I just think it's interesting that Brussels visiting him.
Why? I think it makes sense.
Tell me why you think it makes sense.
In the context of ego, I think it makes sense because he got so many things right, but I think that it's probably the same as beginning the behavioral analysis unit. It's going in and meeting with him and kind of confirming and building more of that profile out to then apply to future cases.
Right. Yeah. Like you said, I do think in part that's ego. I think a level of ego is probably required to be a profile builder. I don't know if you can come from a place of humility and decide that you can make determinations about people's behaviors and personality state without having a little bit of an ego, which isn't to say it's a bad thing.
No.
I'm thankful that they exist. It's just, the way profiles read so confidently, so assuredly. And I don't know if I've ever been that certain about anything in my life. I think the only things I've been that certain of is that I'm attracted to men and that one day every person dies. And I don't know if there's anything else that I'm that certain about. And so I don't know. I think the work they do is fascinating for a lot of reasons, but also the kind of individual it takes to do that kind of work.
Yeah, I can't disagree. I've read several of John Douglas's books.
I'd love to meet a criminal profiler in person and be able to have a conversation with them.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I'd like to do the work.
Mm-hmm.
To me,
that work doesn't speak to me.
Yeah.
Seeing other people do the work is cool.
Yeah.
But no, I know that you would love that, and I think you'd be great at it.
Wow, what a read. What a deep read.
It really wasn't supposed to be that ready. I just meant because you're intelligent and capable, but, I guess in that vein, you are confident about being right. Nothing to say.
I just know that you, of most people in my life, voice more than anyone. You talk about the yonic experience and about how much conviction I speak with.
The way Andrew could not handle how much we talked about vagina and just how much vagina we actually cut. Like,
at least 15 minutes. At least 15 minutes.
And I feel like, I wonder if other listeners were inundated by the amount of vagina talk we had. Because Andrew was like, that was crazy. And I was like, you thought it was crazy. I don't know why I kept talking about it.
That's why I think it's crazy to talk about this podcast to 16 and 17-year-olds.
Not that anyone's doing that. We don't know that.
Yeah. So during the visits with Brussels, Metesky made sure to point out that he was very intentional in his bomb design so that they did not kill anyone, which is something that you noted early on. And I said, hold that thought, put a pin in that. So again, he was sent to this, where was he taken? The Metesky Hospital for the criminally insane, because they didn't think that he was going to live for more than a few weeks. But in 1973, the Supreme Court said that no one could be sentenced to life in a mental health facility operated by the Department of Corrections without a jury determining that they were dangerous. So, what did they do? Loopholed and transferred him to a state hospital that operated outside of the correctional system, Creedmoor Psychiatric Center. December 13th, 1973, after serving 2/3 of his sentence and being deemed not dangerous by doctors, he was released and lived out the next 21 years at his home in Waterbury, where he died at the age of 90. And that's the case of George Metesky, the Mad Bomber, and also the inception of criminal profiling to solve active cases.
I like how this case worked out, actually.
I didn't think about it until we sat down to record, but nobody died. And I didn't want to say that at the top, but nobody died, which can be good or bad depending on the day or who you're talking to.
You know, really, this instance could be a case study of power dynamics in the workplace and what they mean for our physical and mental health as humans that are employed in these huge systems. And I think it reiterates the importance of having a strong communal effort, and not to start using, Marxist language, but the proletariat, the working class, the people having to demand their labor rights and holding to them. We don't have weekends by accident. That was a hard-fought victory by workers and their unions. We don't have holidays by accident. We don't have paid overtime by accident. We don't have a right to health insurance by accident. So all of these things are hard fought. And although George Metesky didn't do things the correct way, the bureaucratic way, not even in a way that necessarily served him, I can understand the thinking behind doing so. When we feel hopeless, when we feel that there's no opportunity, no chance, I understand how someone who feels backed in a corner claws their way out however they can.
Yeah.
Not to say it was right or good, but it reminds me of how fragile those things are, and just how recent it was that people could be treated this way. And they still get treated this way today, but It's much different.
As you were, what's the word? What word am I? Enumerating all of the things that we don't have by accident, it just made me think about how angry I've been getting lately, thinking about how the Industrial Revolution created the modern, work schedule, workforce, the having to leave your home to go work from 9 to 5, like you're Dolly Parton in these streets.
And there's just not enough ambition to go around.
No.
That's all we've got for this episode. Thank you for listening.
Until the next crime.
If you enjoyed listening and want to hear more, please subscribe, give us a 5-star rating, and leave a review.
A complete list of sources can be found in the episode description, except for on the last episode that was released, because I never got the sources.
But maybe we'll update that at some point. If you enjoyed listening and want to hear Nope, recommend us to a friend. And if you're able and willing to help us produce this podcast, sign up for our Patreon.
The link to joining our supportive bestie tier for only $2 a month is listed in the show notes. Also, make sure you're following us at End of Crime Pod on Instagram.
Our email address is endofcrimepod@gmail.com, so feel free to reach out with questions or episode suggestions.
Oh, good timing, Mom.